Well, I just finished fish bowling out the starter decks against each other, and I got a rock, paper, scissors result. I took the win here 2-0 with a ruby and emerald over steel sapphire. Steel sapphire beat amber amethyst 2-1, and amber amethyst beat emerald ruby 2-1. So, what did I learn from this? Let's find out.
Balloons.
So I will say that the MVP of this Emerald Ruby deck is definitely Pongo. I think in one of the videos, even where Ryan Miller was playing this with one of the authors on the websites that were running articles all day today, he got out 2 Pongos and it was just game over. There is just not much to do about an evasive character in this Steel and Sapphire deck. Even with fire the cannons. I think I even had a smash in there somewhere that I used to take out. I mean, I took out a Peter Pan, but there was just too much. I was able to go quite wide with this deck. Now, these starter decks play pretty stally, and it's not going to be anything like constructed. So I think, they're just there to introduce concepts. But it's going to be funny seeing everyone go into Gen Con and try to institute some high-level strategies to make sure they win the tournament. I think another big part of the key was just getting lucky enough to pull your big guys. I know that I got Maui. I don't want to let me search. Like, getting Maleficent out was crucial. I think I got this Maleficent out about every time I won with this deck. Grandma Tall is not bad. Never saw Grab Your Swords once. Flip through Maui. I got Maui out. I mean, 8/8. It took 2 turns of Rafiki's with support from Hey Hey to get rid of it, and that's 6 lore right there. Like, that's just huge. There was a ton of ramp. I mulliganed hard for ramp, and that's really where the biggest strategy is going to come in on these Gen Con games is mulligan. You're going to have to see what cards you've been dealt and see what you can do to give yourself the best hand possible. Like, one time, I had both Moana and Sorcerer Mickey in hand. The stars of the deck, the face cards that you see on the front of the box, and lost because there was just no supporting characters in my hand to help them do anything great. So definitely Rafiki ends up being huge in this deck. So Moana and Mickey and Rafiki, there he is this Rafiki is this deck's removal. So without him, you got nothing. There is 3 copies in there, so it's not bad. I mean, all these, like this Maui, this Maleficent, this Mickey, this Moana, there's only 1 copy of them, so it's really hard to like find them reliably and use them for anything strategy-wise. And that's why Pongo is probably the real game winner there, because there's multiple copies of him, so finding him is not totally impossible. Now, for this Ruby Emerald deck, I don't think any one thing in particular won it for me. I found Mother's Nose best to be pretty useless. I got Rapunzel to come up a lot. She was actually pretty solid. I'm telling you, with that 4 willpower, it can get you through those long games if you need to. Now, Mad Hatter, I wanted to bait out stuff, but at 5 ink, he's just kind of slow. And if you're going to keep him in a mulligan, you're sacrificing a card slot there, and then you're taking just that much more struggle, that much more of a challenge on to get to that 5 ink and still have a presence on the board where your opponent has to actually challenge you. That game where I tried to play Mad Hatter and hold on to him, I lost board presence almost immediately, and my opponent was off to the races, and this deck had no answer, no way to come back. So that's kind of the biggest thing. I did want to touch on mulligans here in this video with my quick review of the starter decks. So let's rack them up and look at what a typical hand may look like and see what we might want to use, in a game, what we might want to keep, what we might want to throw away. So we'll just flip that over for now and flip these over and just go through one at a time, I guess, each deck. So give it a good shuffle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, let's see what we got. All right, so this right here is huge. Pulling your big, powerful drops, your Floodborns, are a gigantic swing. If you can get this card out early, you will pretty much have the game. And honestly, because he's here, I would just mulligan everything to try and get the smaller Facilier. Now normally with Mickey Mouse there, your other option is to mulligan for brooms. And since there is only one Mickey Mouse in deck, I might keep both. Now this is where it gets really dicey because you can't guarantee you're not going to stick yourself with just a crap hand. So let's see what happens if we kept those two. Oh, so that went well. We got brooms and Mickey. And okay, see, this is a better hand than I've had all night with this deck. That is nuts. If you can mulligan aggressively like this and come out on top, you've got a Mickey Brooms potential combo and then a Facilier you can shift on top by turn 5. Like that is a crazy deck. And you've got not only Brooms coming back to your hand, but potentially Mickey coming back to your hand as well. If you wanted to quest with him, usually you just keep him safe by not questing and let the Brooms do all the work, but that's huge. And this card draw on turn 3 to keep your hand, not completely drained. That is an amazing hand. And that's the kind of great things that can happen if you mulligan aggressively. Now let's check out the Sapphire Steel deck. Flip them over. Okay, and that's great because I did not see Aurora Dreaming Guardian a single time tonight in the 5 or 6 games I played with this deck. So of course it comes out now when I'm doing this. Well, once again, you can aggressively mulligan to try and get the smaller Aurora so that you can shift into this quickly. But 3/5 for 2 lore by turn 3, that's pretty big. And then the other thing you want to keep in mind is, what are you playing against? If you're playing against the evasive deck of Emerald Ruby, it may be worthwhile to keep this in your hand, even though that 7 ink is going to just eat up a slot and sit there forever before you get to actually use it. So I don't know. I think I would keep Captain Hook. And if you're just completely new to card games, rule of thumb that I would say for mulliganing is just have a play for your first 3 turns and preferably characters. Like if you play Frying Pan out on turn 2, that's not going to get you anything. So you want to have, a 1 cost character, a 2 cost character, and a 3 cost character. And in following that is the curve. If you can follow 1 on turn 1, 2 on turn 2, 3 on turn 3, etc. But yeah, so with this deck, honestly, this hand is just not great. These high ink ones, it's useless Frying Pan. See, there's so many Jasmines and Kristoffs in here. I don't think we need to keep Jasmine. I think we roll the dice and see what 5. Perfect. Some ramp. Perfect. Some removal. Perfect. A little bodyguard action. I was just about to say, if we could just get a 2-drop Aurora, then the hand would be made. I swear I did not stack these decks. You saw me shuffle them. Yeah, this is pretty nuts. So out the gate right there, depending on if you go first or not, I'd probably ink the Hercules so that you can play the hook. And then we draw next turn, and we've got an uninkable Mufasa. So that's a little bit of pain. Probably ink that Aurora, play there. And then turn 3, you've got options. If you could play Ransack. We'll probably need to ink it just because of how the hand structure is. And then I would probably go Mickey just because we don't have anything else we want to ink. Now it's situation dependent, of course. If you need, so that would just go face on ink. Well, if you needed the Aurora there, you could have played her immediately. And then Jasmine is a solid 2-lore card. So that's a great hand, worked out well there. Again, I'm getting the best hands now that I'm just showing off to you guys. So let's see if we can go for a 3rd time here with the Emerald Ruby deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, let's see. So the key that puts this deck above the others is the evasives. It is hard for other decks to come back against this. Jasper's not bad, but he's helpful if you get behind, and then he's going to become a target immediately. There's so many Aladdins, you're bound to draw more. And really a lot of what this deck does is the trading up. He's got a sword, you've got Megara, who gives you +2 attack as well. And you end up inking those cards a lot more than you think, just because the starter decks, the way these games play, it's not a huge necessity. So I would probably maybe keep Peter Pan just for the evasive and throw back the rest of this deck. So let's see what we would get. 1, 2, see another Aladdin. Told you they aren't inevitable. 3, and there's another. Didn't see him all night either. Maybe once. Here's, oh look, it's the 2 cards on the face of the deck. Now honestly, it was kind of funny. I played Cruella and she was about useless in the deck that I played her in, or the game I played her in. So not that impactful a card for me, the face of the starter deck. So here, this, I did not go 3 for 3. This is a bad hand. There was no 1 or 2 drops. Well, there's a 2 drop. It's all 3 drops, so that's fine. We probably Inchorus. Have to just pass, which is, oh god, this is painful. Ink Aladdin, play Cruella. Honestly, you might use He's Got a Sword at this point, depending on what your opponent has done here on turn 3. This is where if you're ahead, you play Peter Pan to evasive and just try to keep questing and win the game. If you're behind, you play Aladdin and try to get your shift Aladdin out. So let's say we inked that, you know, next turn was horrible. Do that, and then, oops, I had her. Yep. So depending on the board state, how far behind we are, ink had her or whatever, and try to shift that. So really, you just have to practice with each of the decks to look at the lines of play. It's a practice with the decks against each other. If you want to prepare yourself for Gen Con, there are reviewers who have had the decks for about a month. They've written up articles on them. I've seen charts and graphs. Lorcana.com has all of these articles and resources posted in their big feed. You can just kind of scroll through there and see what kind of write-ups and stuff you see on the starter decks. I'm not gonna bother to go in depth with them myself because I think the best way that you can learn with them is just to play them and test it out. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. I hope this, very beginner guide on how to mulligan the starter decks was helpful and covered something, a little outside of what all the articles are covering with the big overview of the entire deck. But thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.